Greetings. I thought I'd just give you a little summary of what I've been working on, which is extremely unimpressive in terms of visual output. This is at the same time a cemetery map in progress, but actually it's a test bed for stuff for a new game I was going to do. Nothing major, just something for my son. But I was working on a system I'll be using in other maps, which is a system I think I've mentioned before here, to automatically populate large numbers of buildings with random things inside, and to try and do that in an efficient and random and plausible way. So I forget if I've already shown you this, but I have a sort of magic wallpaper that changes the colour scheme, not just the colour but the whole colour scheme for a house, depending on where it is in space. So when you have a row of houses, they all have distinct colour schemes, but they are the same house with the same materials. I digress. And I have here two classes of things. One is the left part of a house, one is the right part of the house, and it's got a flipped mesh in it, but these are two separate blueprints. And I realised that to do what I needed to do, I needed to make a tool, because there's so much to do. I tried manually setting this up, but it's a nightmare. So the basic gist is that there are different groups of things that I want to choose randomly. So let's say for Windows, this is a bad example, there are 3 different configurations of Windows, let's say, and each configuration is a bunch of actors put in a certain place with a certain transformation. Here I have done that manually inside the blueprint. So in the blueprint, what this is, let's bring this across here. So this is just one half of a house, and that is the mesh. That is the mesh. So with the mesh you don't see the windows. Those are added in the blueprint, which is here. Not here, here. And same deal, there's the mesh, but I've added a whole load of other things. Now these are meshes at the moment, but they will in due course be blueprints because we want windows to be destructible. They're also missized, and I've updated the mesh since I placed these, and some of them in the wrong place entirely, like these ones. But while I'm here, let's put it back in vaguely the right place. I am definitely digressing hard with a vengeance. Right, so what I want to do is to be able to define for any class of blueprint these groups of actors. So there might be another group which is, say, my interface needs a bit of work. Let's say front room. And let's just flip to that. The group IDs are just allocated normally. And let's say we have 2 of these groups. One might have, it'll be easy to show rather than explain, like a sofa there and a bookcase there. And the other group might have a sofa there, just a chair there. And there are 2 modes of operation. One is to do it dynamically. So it picks a random one of these along the same lines as that picks a colour for the colour scheme based on the position of the actor it's applied to. I also thought that for most things I would bake this into a fixed list that's attached to an instance of a blueprint. So there is an instance Victorian 5, so these are all separate houses which are all versions of the same blueprint, but that's an instance, and this instance would have an array of actors, and there is a plugin that will populate them. And the reason it is hopefully efficient is that it will only spawn in the actors when you're near or inside the building. So when you go in the door, a lot of the actors will then just spawn in, and when you leave they'll be destroyed. So there is an overhead for spawning in and destroying, and that might mean the whole thing is worthless, but if that's okay, then you'll do a lot of saving, because you won't then have to store or draw anything in houses that you can't see near to you. So that whole row of houses will just be a low LOD mesh with windows that are opaque probably, and that's a trivial thing to draw. Whereas if they're all full of belongings, not so easy. Another approach is to do level streaming, where you define the insides of these houses as sub-levels and you stream them in when you hit a trigger. But that's crude, it's on-off rather than more gradual. And it's a real faff to do, and also you're going to want to not have 200 sub-levels but group these together in some way. Whereas in this way, this method I'm doing, you don't have to group anything or manually do anything at all. You just have to define for a class of blueprint all the permutations. You can have subgroups. So if I say the parent group on that one is 11, duplicate group doesn't work yet. That means that it will perhaps put a sofa there rather than there, and then these two groups it'll randomly position stuff on the bookcase, so you still get more randomizing for a particular layout. Easier to show than explain, as I said, but I've spent weeks and weeks and weeks on this bloody thing. So if you're asking me what I've been doing, I've been working with Slate, which is an Unreal way of doing user interfaces, and I've been making a list view that works for literally months. I've been on a journey, so I've had to do a class for the actual each row of the list view. I really hate it, and the problem is that the examples are hard to find and the documentation is non-existent. It's just depressing how much time I've spent trying to figure out stuff that could have been in a decent bit of documentation. Hate you epic sometimes, but anyway, I have done a lot. So you've got things like let's find. So you check everything you type in. Is this group name valid? Is this? And each of these is a separate function which you have to define about 4 times, and you've got stuff like this. A lot of these sort of delegate definitions. A lot of this pseudo grammar, which is the Unreal C++ stuff is full of this stuff. And then you got all this, but I've persevered. So I have half of a toolbar. What I haven't got yet is the actors, but what I hope is that if you click on a group, if you've got it previewing, it will then, on the selected blueprint that you activated, it will then spawn the actors in there so you can see immediately what's going on. Then you can move them around and then save. So if you edit the group, you can move stuff around and then save it or cancel it. So hopefully that will make it really easy to set up these things, and then when I can work on the actual spawning side, hopefully I can make a really efficient super duper bit of code that I can then drop in to basically make very large urban areas where all the buildings or near enough are enterable, which has been the holy grail, to be honest. So I need to combine a few techniques for that, a lot of mesh merging, and LOD stuff. But if I combine all that together, I'm hoping I can really push the boundary on a world that you can just walk around, bust down a door, go into a house, and everything is there. So I've manually placed some doors, but those would be part of the system, that it would spawn in blueprints for things, as well as just the meshes. And more of this material randomizing, where you can... that's not going to work. That's not going to work. What am I doing? What am I doing? Craziness. But where you can move, where the mesh is depends on what the colours are. So I can extend that to other things to really, really randomise in a plausible way all the buildings you see, so they're not samey. And also some manual variation, manually putting in different meshes, different buildings, variations. You can see I've done a slight variation on the brickwork, a slight variation on the roof, but you can't see that. So I want to really push the boundaries of getting, you can see there some variation on the roofs, so that you don't get this, you know, cookie cutter stamping out of background stuff, which it is now at the moment, fair enough, but with these techniques I can hopefully really, without too much effort, make big open urban levels, which is my dream. There we go, I rambled, but more to come, but that's just to show you what I've been working on. And other little things like, this is for the game, just defining various game systems to try and generate maps automatically and to have addresses. I don't think I've shown you my address stuff, but each house has an address that's defined with these things, where you just got a list of houses and it assigns the addresses, and you can have flats, and you know, one of these has a more interesting, so you have a house name, and then you can just integrate that into a system where you can randomly pick an address and it will be a valid looking address and you can navigate to it. So all that kind of stuff, just stuff under the hood, not getting anywhere with the actual level design. But once this is off the ground, and it's also going to be used to make blocks of flats and things, which is where I actually first started using it. But again, you see the variation in the colours from this random wallpaper, and these will be populated with this random system, including the windows. And then I'll work on how to populate it with things like different LODs, where, you know, at a distance it looks like you know, it's actually much simpler inside. So a lot of interrelated systems for getting very good urban areas. I'll stop rambling now. Thank you for listening. Bye.